Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Alison, the online piano and the online violin tutor. Today's video is 3 quick and simple tips for sight reading. So these tips are going to help you improve your sight reading a bit further, and these are probably the 3 kind of mistakes, the 3 top mistakes that people make with sight reading. Tip number 1. When you first get the piece of music in front of you, or when you're first looking at a piece of music to learn, scan through the music. So many people and so many students just don't even bother to look at the music. And even if they do look at the music, I can see that they're not looking at the time signature. They're not looking at the key signature. If you're not looking at the time signature, you're not kind of getting a little bit of a pulse going on in your head as you're scanning the music. Look at the key signature. The key signature is probably the number 1 most important aspect, and nobody looks at the key signature. Why is baffling to me, but I don't know why. So don't fall into that trap. Looking at the key signature is imperative because it's going to tell you if there's going to be any flats and sharps and etc to play on the piano, which is the whole point of the music. If you're missing out the sharps and flats, then the whole piece is going to be trash. The other thing to look out for is simple things like, are there any complicated passages? Are there any passages that when you look at you think, uh-oh, because there's some major notage going on here and everything looks a muddle. Maybe you've got semiquavers or 16th notes and everything's all bunched up. Have a look at that and see if you can decipher with your eyes what's going on first before you do anything. Once the eyes have had a look at it and the brain has had a chance to process that, that can be kind of filtering through to your fingers. So when you do come across that particular passage when you are sight reading it, all of your senses aren't overwhelmed. So your eyes aren't overwhelmed thinking, oh my God, and your fingers aren't overwhelmed, your brain isn't overwhelmed. At least if you've had a bit of a heads up, so to speak, then all you've got to do is just fathom out what the notes are and break it down a lot easier. Check for other things like, are there any particularly high notes? Are there any particularly low notes? A lot of people, including myself, I will admit to this, that I don't always know the top notes, the notes in this very top octave, and I don't always know the notes in the very lower octave as well, because you just don't come across them. And when you're looking at something with sort of 4 or 5 ledger lines, and you're not used to playing that all the time, sometimes it takes you a second just to work out what those notes are. So familiarise yourself with things like that, and then look out for a few sneaky little things. For example, are there any sneaky little bass clefs that they've put into the right hand, or any little treble clefs that they've snuck into the left hand, and just little things like that. So just by doing something as simple as scanning through the music, you are going to save yourself a whole lot of headache and a whole lot of trouble, and giving yourself the biggest heads up that you can possibly give yourself. Whilst you're also scanning through the music, you're getting the big picture in as well. You're taking in a lot more information than you might actually think you are taking in. So for example, you're actually, without being aware of it, you're taking in the tempo, depending on how fast or slow the notes are. So whether you've got minims, crotchets, or quarter notes, half beat notes, that kind of thing, whole notes, depending on the type of note that you've mostly got in the music, will give you an idea of how fast it's supposed to go, and it gives you an overall flavour of the music. So like I said, you're taking in more things than you actually think you are by having a good and proper scan of the music. Okay, tip number 2 would be starting off slowly. Oh my God, people do not start slow enough when they do sight reading. I don't know what it is. From a teacher's point of view, I will put sight reading in front of students, or we'll be learning a new piece of music. I'll put the music in front of the student on the piano, and they'll go straight in at full performance speed. And again, my mind boggles with this. Why are you going in at full performance speed? You've never played the piece of music before. You've never even seen the sheet music, and yet you're trying to go in at full performance speed. And I get it. I get it. We've all been there. But the second biggest tip after looking through the music that I can give you for sight reading is just to start slowly. There's no reason to start at the performance speed because you're learning it. So you're going to get that speed up anyway. So don't worry about the speed now. you can sort the speed out another time. By slowing it down, it gives you more perspective, so you can get a grasp of the rhythm. The rhythm is very, very important because the rhythm will dictate the melody. The rhythm will give you the flavour of the whole piece. So the more accurate your rhythm is and the more you can focus on the rhythm, the better reflection of the song you're going to get. And you can keep it going at a nice steady pace as well. So, you know, pick a pulse or pick a pace. 1, 2, 3, 4, you know, something like that, and count in your head and try and keep that pace steady as you go, rather than trying to stop and start. If you feel like that pace is a little bit too fast, then just draw that pace back a bit and just slow it down. But like I said, the second biggest piece of advice I can give you is to start slow, because you will find the whole thing just so much easier to learn, rather than trying to start in at a very, very fast pace. You're looking at the first bar. Most people can generally get the first bar down and that's it. They can't do anything past the first bar or the first measure. Sorry if you guys are in the US. And you can't get past that. And then the whole thing is just gone to crap, and you know, you're getting yourself in a muddle, you're getting frustrated. It's, you know, everything just, you start getting the anxiety setting in. So if you slow it down, it's giving your eyes time to look at each section as you come across it. And don't forget as well, with the piano, you've got two things to look at. So you've got the treble clef and you've got the bass clef, the right and the left hand. And you're always going to be looking top to bottom, top to bottom, top to bottom, as well as going from, you know, left to right, top to bottom, right, top to bottom, turn right. Do you see what I mean? As you're reading the music. So the faster you go, the less time your eyes have and your brain has to process that information. And the third little tip is to practice sight reading every day. The good news with sight reading is that the more you do it, the better you can get. And the more you do it, you can actually improve incredibly quickly. And by incredibly quickly, I mean minutes and hours. So I'm not talking about improving sight reading over, you know, 3 months, 5 months, 6 months. I'm talking about improving sight reading. You know, by the time you've watched this video, for example, if the time, however long this video turns out to be, if you've actually sat there sight reading, you're actually better than you were when you first started sight reading. It's something that you obviously have to keep up, like anything, doing exercise, you've got to keep that up to keep your fitness up. If you do, say, 20 minutes of sight reading every single day, at the end of the week, I can guarantee you will be beyond impressed at how good your sight reading is. And you will know that when you go back to playing the piece of music. Say you had a piece of music to start with that you weren't very good at sight reading, it wasn't going particularly too well, then after the course of a week of practicing sight reading, you come back to that piece, I'm telling you, you will be so much better at it. And the other kind of, maybe kind of bonus tip that I want to give you here is, don't practice sight reading at your current level. You want to be just slightly under the level that you're at. Let's say, for example, you are playing pieces at a level 3, whatever you would kind of gauge that to be as, it doesn't really matter. You want to be sight reading at a level 2 kind of standard, if that sort of makes sense. So try and find pieces of music that you think are slightly easier than the current standard that you're learning. The pieces that you're using to learn at the moment are there to challenge you. So they are going to be slightly out of your reach, but that is the whole point of practice. And if you don't do that, then obviously you're not going to develop and get better as a pianist. But sight reading is a completely different ball game. You've got sight reading in one corner, you've got learning a piece of music in another corner. Every time you start a new piece of music, it is considered as sight reading, and you should utilize that. Use that chance to get a good little bit of sight reading in. Once you've played it through 3 or 4 times, it's no longer sight reading anymore. It's starting to become familiar, and it moves over to this area here where you're now practicing and learning and progressing and getting better at the piece of music. So if you want to just focus in on sight reading as a separate kind of entity to learning, or with the aim of starting with sight reading and learning a piece of music, then what I would suggest to you is that you get a whole bunch of music from wherever, you know, try and find a book that you can get off the internet or Amazon or whatever it is, or something that you might have that is slightly easier, not too easy because that's going to defeat the object, but something that's slightly easier. for you to practice and just sit there and go through it. Play each of those pieces maybe twice to 3 times, probably no more than 4 times, depending on the level. You'll have to judge that yourself, but maybe 3 to 4 times, and then move on to the next piece. And trust me, if you do that every day for 10, 15, 20 minutes, again, depending on the length of those pieces and the standard that you are personally at, the higher the standard, the longer the pieces are going to be. You do that at the end of the week, and I can guarantee that you will have absolutely improved tenfold. So there we go, those are my 3 top tips for improving your sight reading. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you want me to maybe expand a little bit more about sight reading, or bring you some more sight reading videos, or some more tips in sight reading, I don't know, anything like that, let me know in the comments underneath, and yeah, I can do that for you. I've got so much to say about the topic of sight reading. I could just talk for hours and hours and hours, but then nobody watched the video because it would be too long. So yeah, if you want me to do some more on this subject, then absolutely, I'm down with that. So thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in my next video. Bye.